pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first order of business is delegations. Anybody from the public would like to address the board? Anybody? Seeing none. We'll move on to new business. The first thing on the agenda was a contingency transfer of $6870. We're not going to take action on that tonight. We'll table that to another meeting.
Yeah, that was a subject of a meeting yesterday, Mr. Chairman, with the Board of Selectmen. We didn't have a quorum for. We couldn't vote and move it over, but that's an item we're going to need to get as quick as we can because...
We have another meeting Monday, so...
Okay.
Oh, I think it's due soon.
Yeah, may not be that one, but we'll get what we can. Thank you.
Okay, the next order of business, budget reviews, Board of Education. Mr. Formica.
Well, I think the Board of Education has presented a wonderful budget. I've reviewed it in depth and detail. No, I'm kidding. As you know, we listen to the Board of Education at the joint meeting with the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen. I think this is an opportunity for you to ask any in-depth questions. And I think, Brian, you're going to do the, I'm going to get off this seat so Brian can sit here, and I think it'll be easier for him to present, and Anna, and I'll just be background, but, and I guess they'll be open to your questions. And do you have a presentation you want to start with, or just?
No presentation, but we'll introduce ourselves.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And Dr. Lombardo wishes he could be here tonight, but
Sure he does.
I will do my best to fill in his big shoes.
Questions from the board?
I don't know this gentleman. I don't know you.
My name's Brian Reese. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for East Lyme Public Schools.
Great.
I guess I'd start off with a statement. If I look back at the budgets, FY 212 budget was $40,322,000. FY 2015 request is $43 million. So therefore, you're up about $3 million in 4 years. Number of students in FY 212 was 2934. The projected number of students for FY 2015 is 2804, or 130 students less. If I expand on the above, in FY 2010, the Board of Education budget was $39,147. So we're up about $4.18 million from FY 2010. It's a pretty good slope. Now, if I look at, and that was just a statement. There was no question here. If I look at your budget this year, what you're proposing is, one of the things you're proposing is 2 deans of students and 1 assistant principal. Deans of students are about 85,784 if I divide your number by 2 each. And an assistant principal is 125,019. So one would think you'd save $40,000 if you said to yourself, instead of assistant principal, I'd just go for 3 deans of students, because you don't have an assistant principal right now. And if the reason for the assistant principals is to alleviate time for principals to do their evaluation. So let's question, why did we decide to go that way? It costs $40,000 more than if you did 3 deans of students.
So I think the answer is that, one, the assistant principal is split between 2 schools. So the need for that is a little different than a dean who's based in the high school or the middle school. The other piece is how we went about dividing the responsibilities. In the middle and the high school, there is a significant amount of work to be done in the lower level disciplinary area, which can be done by a dean of students. And whereas in the elementary school, there's a wide variety of tasks that would need to be done, and less of that work that we could really use a dean of students who would be in the teacher's contract for. So that was the thinking.
Okay. I do have more questions, but why don't I go to the board? Anybody else on the board have questions for the Board of Education?
I have one, just to follow up, because I think we'll just do it by areas. The assistant principal wasn't there before. How long has the schools, the two elementary schools, not had the assistant principal?
I'm going to have to look to somebody for a history lesson on that. I'm not sure of that question.
I think it's, probably 5 years. Don Meltwater, business manager. I believe it's been 5 or 6 years. More than that, maybe 7 or 8. It's been gone for a while.
Okay, and what's changed from that point to this point to wanting to add it on? Or was it there attempts before in budget time to try to bring back the assistant principal but without success, or why now?
It's the added responsibilities of the new teacher evaluation system.
So
The numbers of hours are just excessive.
Okay, so you're including the $378,258 for the new Common Core teacher evaluation. That includes the assistant principal, the 2 deans of students, the consultant, and that's what equals the 300. Like, what's the breakdown totally of?
So if you look at, trying to find that in a page so I can refer you to it.
So that page itself is everything that includes the 328, the 378. Okay,
So that's page 25.
so that's the
Looks like
.9,
this.
page 25.
And so it would include 1 assistant principal, 2 deans of students, 1 computer consultant, and 3 bus monitors.
Okay, so the bus monitors is a part of that.
Correct.
Okay.
And the computer consultant is right now our computer consultant and at the high school, and our director of technology, who does all the technology work, leadership work for the district, is one and the same.
So it's the same person?
It's currently the same person, and we're really using that person more than we probably should to get all of that work done, especially as we continue to add the needs for software and hardware to be implemented throughout the district.
So it's an expansion of his existing responsibilities, and that would be an increase in order for him to carry out those new
It would be an
responsibilities?
added position
But it wouldn't
to
be an
really-
an additional health benefits or anything like that?
No, it is another position. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Okay.
miscommunicate that.
Okay, I guess I have a follow-up question to this issue. I'm a numbers person, you know, I try to remove all emotion from everything, and I'm just looking at the numbers on the evaluation system page. And I see that historically, about 53 days have been spent on teacher and admin evaluations.
I didn't bring that.
You're adding the 19, 15, and the 19 together?
Yes, so am I correct in understanding that currently we spend 53 days a year doing these evaluations that are not mandated by the state?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So if we go towards this flexibility plan for 2014 and 15, we're looking at a total of 206 days that's required to perform the state mandated teacher and admin evaluations.
That's right.
If I subtract what we're currently handling with the current staff of 53 days from the 206 days that are now required, I get 153 days. So if a school year is 180 days, doesn't that equate to just 1 position required? to handle that additional workload?
If you purely look at the numbers, I could see where you would make that assessment. In the reality of getting the teacher evaluation system implemented, no, it wouldn't be a one-to-one match like that. This is time that administrators are solely spending. On evaluation. This doesn't take into account lunch for teachers or administrators or students. This doesn't take into account any other administrative tasks. So if you could have observations on the first day of school and the last day of school, and work, basically evaluate at the same full-time pace and pack in 3 evaluations a day for one person, if that was possible, those numbers would work. In practicality, that it just wouldn't work out that way. So, but I understand where your numbers are coming from. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Tim has a question.
Mike, could you just add, embellish on the point that you just made?
Sure.
I think I worked it.
If I'm just following you correctly.
So Mike Susi is our principal of our high school.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Mike.
You are adding, just so we're on the same page, these 3 numbers, the 19, the 15, and the 19, correct?
Yeah.
You have to keep into account for the elementary principals, the bottom one. That says 3 of those people.
I'm sorry, I'm not,
So
well, I think
3 elementary schools.
Just the bottom, this number right here, the 19, there's 3 of those people. So when you're counting up the numbers,
When you look at 19 plus 15 plus 19, you have to add 2 more 19s because there's 2 more people.
well, that doesn't help your case.
Well, if you go over to the right and you look at the 73, that gets 2 more 73s as well.
No, 81. Or would you-
No, if you look at, for elementary principals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go one more over. I guess
Yeah.
you're looking at, I'm not sure
Yeah.
which one you're looking at, the 81 or the 73,
Right.
depending which number. But if you're totaling those numbers up to get a total, if you're looking at personnel, there's 3 of those people so you can add another what,
I see what you're saying.
38
Right.
38 days to the old plan, and you're going to add another 146 days to the new plan. I'm sorry, 162, because you're using the 81. Does that make sense?
Okay, yes. So, now we're at,
Just to clarify on this.
yeah. No, that'll help me think about the numbers. You're talking about a total of 91 days currently that is being handled with the current staff.
That's about right, yes.
Yeah. And 352, which would be required if we're saying 73 times 3. For a variance of 261 days.
In addition to this part as well, there are also assistant principals that are factored in here as well. So at the high school, there's 2.5 assistant principals that are supervising people as well. And at the middle school, there are 2 assistant principals. What you're looking at here, the graph you're looking at here, is just by one person, one administrator. So what it takes for that one administrator to do that job. If you're looking at more of a comprehensive view of what it takes for all of the administrators to do all of the hours that are required, you have to do a lot more calculations on this to get there. I mean, I understand where you're getting.
So you're saying that every administrator, assistant administrator, everybody that's involved would have to do the same amount of time?
Yes, correct. For example, at
It's
the high school.
extrapolated based on the number of people that are actually in each one of these facilities.
Correct. So
And
at the
so-
high school, we would divide up our total teacher population by 3.5 administrators. And that's what gets you these numbers, but it's per administrator at the building. So when you're looking at the total number, you're going to multiply the total you get here for the high school by 3.5. At the middle school, you're going to do it by 3. At the elementary school, there are 3 elementary principals, so in essence, these numbers get multiplied by 3 as well.
Mhm.
Then you could use that calculation to compare apples to apples.
Right, right. No, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, this
Thank you
doesn't
for
really
the
show it that way, so.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a question. So we've talked in the past about somehow alleviating the burden by raising revenue for the sports program. And I'm wondering if you can tell us what steps you have taken or plan to take to that end.
And I don't normally speak, Don? Go ahead.
Yes, as you may be aware, the Board of Education has allowed us to begin advertising, and we've just recently begun doing that, soliciting. We've gotten 3 businesses so far have responded. We've contacted about 25. We've also talked to the Elbow Group, which is the East Lyme business organization. About 40 people in that as well. So we've had some favorable comments and stuff, but we only had 3 step up and write a check to us right now, so hopefully that'll go on. But the funds from that, and I'm not sure if you're aware or not, 40% is supposed to go into like escrow account. So in 12 to 14 years, when we have to replace the artificial turf field, funds will be used for that. The balance will be used to support athletic activities. But it's in its infancy, just getting off the ground right now.
Because I'm looking at the sports activities, $800,000 for the sports program. And the music program is $741,000. When salaries are removed, the sports program, if I see this right, is $275,000 for the sports program, aside from salaries. The music program is $45,000. Big difference, 6 times difference. So I'm scratching my head a little bit, and I'm saying, gosh, that's a lot of money for sports. And I know we've been talking about doing some ads and whatnot. I'm looking to see if we've put any pen to paper, a plan, anticipation, what we think we can do to alleviate this. And I just heard you say, Don, that it's in the infancy stages. I guess I was expecting it to be further along, given that we've been talking about this for a few years. And I don't know. We've talked about the tax burden for a lot of people in town, and I see this as a place where we can really take some ground. It's not education directly related. I know I probably won't make a lot of friends with this statement, but anyway, I'm just thinking that's an area that we can look at and try to be more efficient.
So, and certainly it's somewhere we can be more efficient. I would encourage, if my high school principal were to come back up here, he would tell you how many hundreds of students do participate in the sports program. And the music program or the arts programs, you're talking about from K or pre-K all the way up to 12th grade. So you're dealing with the whole 2,900 students who are in that program. And I think I think most people feel that's part of a comprehensive program in American education, is to have music and sports in there. We've certainly tried to be very efficient. I know for one way we've done that is we have not allowed for any transportation increases in our sports programs for the past number of years, which has basically been a quick message to our athletic director to use the same amount of funds and figure out how to get within that budget, and they've done that. And we've also, I believe, Their entire increase in those areas, I believe, was in the 1.5% increases for those
For just the
areas.
transportation, you mean, or the whole?
No, we haven't increased transportation in
Okay.
that area, but the increases in the salaries for
Mhm.
those stipends has totaled about 1.5%. So we've certainly done some work there to try to keep the impact at a minimum.
Yeah, I
I
see
think-
$96,000 for transportation for sports.
And it's been that way for a number of
Wait a
years.
minute, 105, 424.
Pardon me?
$105,424 transportation for sports.
Oh, this sheet has a different number on it.
Oh, it's right here.
Okay.
I'm on page 23.
This breakdown
Of
that I
this.
requested
The
has a
budget,
different, has a
the
different
budget
number.
request for this year is $105,424 for transportation for sports. It's what?
So what I'm hearing is that also includes field trips. That's not just the sports program. So there's some music and activities.
Okay,
That's the difference in the 96 and the 105.
then I guess that answers, do you mind if I?
No, I don't mind at all.
I guess that answers this question. If I look at your big book, program function, 3201 is student activities, right? Sports, student activity sports. So I looked at that, and the only place 3201 exists is in the middle school and the high school, and district-wide, but if you look under the transportation line, for the high school, it's $77,000, and for the middle school, it's $3,000. So that would be $80,000. So my question was going to be, where's the other $25,000? And I guess that's field trips for other activities, is what you're telling me?
If you look at 3242, which is student activity and music, you have transportation of 7,000. If you look at
Okay, that-
3203, you have transportation of 2,000.
That explains why I couldn't find the other $25,000, because it wasn't all sports. Okay, any other questions from the board?
So then that begs the question, what's the difference between student activity music 3202 and then music 1112?
The 3202 is basically for the band and going to band competitions and that sort of thing. The music is within the programs, within the buildings.
Oh,
For your orchestra or
I
your
see.
extracurricular music.
Okay. Have we given any consideration to any form of pay-to-play in either of these areas?
So I believe, and I don't usually speak for the board, but I think that is something the board has discussed. The last time it was discussed, my understanding was that it would deter some students from coming to our sports programs. It would maybe make a small dent in the sports programs. People who use pay-to-play pay for $800,000 of expenses through activity funds or through student fees. It usually pays for a small piece of that. And that it would also be considerable to manage. So we haven't pursued that.
Okay, I guess I would think that there would be enough to gain by considering that than not. And I'm sure there would be some kids that wouldn't be in a position to do that, but maybe we could address that like we do most other programs on an
Yeah.
as-needed basis.
Yeah, Lisa, that's a really good point. And the pay for play is something that over the past several years the board has had conversations about, and I think Brian actually hit it pretty well. Is that even at a pay for play of on the order of $50 to $100, in addition to all the money that the parents put out for the sports and in support of their children and so forth, even that amount is relatively a small amount. I mean, all
Per family.
per family,
Right.
whatever, but it's a relatively total total amount is still relatively small. And then you have the administration cost of actually collecting the money and following up on it and all that. So it does have an impact in terms of not the complexity, but the overhead of actually doing it. The other thing is that East Lyme culture has prided itself profoundly on teaching the child as a whole, and the sports programs, the music programs, all the student activities are something that really are part of what make the East Lyme School District such a wonderful place for kids to be educated. The academics is very, very extremely important as well, but it is all about teaching the whole child. Our principal also would like to, the high school would like to say a couple of words too
Sure.
about
I just want to respond to that,
Sure,
Tim. I don't
yeah.
think anybody would disagree
I know,
with
yeah.
the thing you're saying. We all want everything for all of our kids.
I know.
But we clearly do not have unlimited resources.
Yes,
I mean, we just don't. And I'm just looking at some areas that
Yep.
we could potentially visit and get out of the box on, think of creative ways to make those programs still be successful and alleviate the burden for some of our taxpayers who are not in a position to shoulder some of these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I agree. And the advertising program at our athletic field, as well as indoors at in the gymnasium, is actually taking off. And I'm hoping that it'll actually be a pretty nice source of revenue for the coming year as it starts to really kick in. So that is something. And that's a big change for us in terms of.
Tim, what do you project? And obviously, you got to be selling something. What are the hopes, the projections? I know it just started. You got 3
Yeah.
checks, which is a start. What?
Let's see. Well, let's see. The 3 are for which
Oh.
I'm looking at Don to get I can't remember the fee structure.
Well, it's still right now, off the top of my head, it's like $1,000.
Yeah, for a year, $1,000. So three times 1,000. That's $3,000. If we have, 30,
What are you guys aiming for? Somebody put their head in the noose for me, please.
I would say we're hoping like for $100,000.
Yeah.
Did you think about getting the parents involved or the business community, the first selectman here, in ways to raise that money? Because probably create a bunch of people out there that can.
No, we hadn't had any discussions about. You mean fundraising type activities or like that? No, we have not had that.
It's just 100,000, I would just ask Mr. Carpentieri for it.
Right. Oh.
Maybe I could just add that.
Are you one of the 3?
If you're aware.
Hey, does that Pfizer do that matching grant anymore?
Don, would you please clutch your mic?
$4,000.
I'm not sure if you're aware of all the booster activity. All the different sports have parents who are involved, and that's where a lot of the fundraising goes toward that's what Brian just talked about. A lot of the sports are funded through them. Like like our rowing association, we contribute nothing to that program, and they've donated, it's about $150,000 worth of boats that they buy with their booster money that they have, and then they contribute to the school. That's just one example.
Do you have a revenue line for that to shows all the student activities that are paid by parents or donations to show
We don't.
an offset?
Again,
You
that's
don't-
through booster clubs. This has nothing to do with us.
But how about the student activity funds, the check that the